May I have your attention, please? Shabbat Shalom, everyone. My name is son of Yisrayl Abel, Deacon Hawkins, and I'd like to serve you forever as a priest starting very soon. It's now time to start finding your seats for Sabbath services. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. My name is son of Yisrayl Abel, Buffalo Bill Hawkins, and I'd like to serve you as a priest starting very soon. It's a privilege and honor to present to you the sons and daughters of Yisrayl Abel now entering the sanctuary. I now present one of the sons of Yisrayl Abel, Deacon Yeshurun Hawkins.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. May the peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. You may be seated. My title today is Why You Should Salt Your Sacrifice. Please turn to Leviticus 2 verse 13 on page 82. Page 82. And it says, every offering of your grain offerings you shall season with salt. You shall not allow the salt of the covenant of Yahweh to be lacking from your grain offering. With all your offerings you shall offer salt. The doctors say that you don't need to eat salt, but salt is very healthy. Yes, salt. But Yeshua said this. Please turn to Yochanan 9:50 on page 770. And it says, salt is healthy in form of nature, but if the salt has lost its saltiness, what will you season it? Have salt in yourselves and be at peace with one another. Pastor told us years ago that cancer cannot live in a cell with salt. Also, if you remember a few weeks ago, I said that too. So don't be afraid if you eat salt. The first book of Yisrael, chapter 19, verse 49 on here Pastor is teaching us how the world has to suffer to learn, but we are able to learn from Yahweh and put this knowledge to work in our lives. Verse 49, this is what we are learning right now. Mankind is learning it the hard way, but you can see it in the scriptures and believe. Yeshua spoke of those who believe without seeing. The only way you can see this is to read and say, I know this way is right and this is the way I am going to follow. It is kind of like eating salt for your health. All the world is saying, do not eat salt. And I am saying to you, salt is healthy for you. You need it in your diet. So for those that believe without seeing, we have been eating salt ever since Pastor told us how healthy salt is. I like salt and I eat salt on everything. Do you like it too? Some have been deceived into not eating salt, though, and actually doing Satan's will. Yes, Satan's will is that you don't eat salt. Listen to this. The first book of Yisrael, chapter 19, verse 68. Revelations 13, verse 4. Here we see they worship the dragon, they serve the dragon. The way you serve Yahweh is by doing what he tells you to do and going in Yahweh's path. One way you serve the devil is not by eating salt. Not eating honey is another way. Not eating butter is another way. These are some of the little things. Some of the bigger things are fornication and adultery, destroying your mind with these things, and then going into hatred and wars. Doing Yahweh's will and eating salt produces love, not war. Right here it says that salt helps to create bonds between parents and children. I have noticed the stress level seem to be increasing. Has anybody else? Well, I think everyone should reread chapter 20 in the 11th book of Yisrayl. It's about salt and how salt helps to reduce stress and create social bonds. Social bonds like when we work together in unity. Like these men working on a new sign, working together, fellowship, shipping in the work, very joyful because we salt our food and drink. This is the billboard they are doing at the 603. The world is even beginning to see the great need for salt, though due to the preaching and publishing from the House of Yahweh. I found an article that you may find interesting. There are many more why salt is great for you. There is no need to suffer through bland, unsalted meals in the sake of health. Here are 12 reasons why salt is great for you. The premise that salt leads to hypertension has never been scientifically supported. On the contrary, studies show that a reduced sodium diet leads to health issues. There are many more benefits of eating salt, and these are great reasons to eat salt, because the reason we should salt every sacrifice is that Yahweh says that you need to eat salt. So remember, the key word is salt. Eat salt and lots of it. And if you all please stand.
And at this time, we'll turn the services over to the great son of Yisrayl Abel, Deacon Yahaqob.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. May the peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. Today, my title is Go to the ant and the bee, consider their ways and be wise. Now, in the book of Proverbs, King Solomon told us to go to the ant. Now, if you think of King Solomon, how high up he was, how much power he had, and he's telling us to go to one of the smallest creatures, the ant. Let's turn to Proverbs 6. Proverbs 6, found on page 499. And we'll start at verse 6, Proverbs 6:6. It says, Go to the ant, you sluggard, consider her ways, and be wise. She, having no guide, overseer, or ruler, provides her food in the summer and gathers her food during the harvest. Now, he also mentions it again in Proverbs 30. Let's turn to Proverbs 30. found on page 516, Proverbs 30, and let's go to verse 24. Now this is talking about the 4 wise small creatures. It says, "There are 4 things which are small on the earth, but they are exceedingly wise. The ants are a tiny nation, yet they prepare their food in the summer." Now, Yahweh created ants for a reason. Now, a few reasons are that if you don't clean up your house, they'll clean it up for you. Also, they clean the earth. Ants walk up to about 1.25 miles a day, every day, to clean up the earth. Now, Yahweh created everything to do a certain job, or certain jobs, and He told us to guard and keep. He will give us the authority to guard and keep what He has made perfect. Now, let's turn to Genesis 2, found on page 2. Genesis 2, verse 15, it says, "Then Yahweh took the man and put him in the garden to work and care for it. And Yahweh commanded the man, saying, Of every tree of the garden you may freely eat, but the tree of the knowledge of righteousness and evil you must not eat, for in the day you eat of it you shall surely die." Alright, so the tree of every tree of the garden you may eat, but not of the tree of righteousness and evil. Now, you see in verse 15, it says here to work and care, and in the King James Version, it says to dress and keep it, but we know in the Strong's it means to guard and keep. Yahweh said that we would have the authority over the microorganisms, or the things that creep. Let's go to Genesis 1. Genesis 1, verse 23, it says, "So the evening and then the morning were the 5th day. Then Yahweh said, Let the earth bring forth the living creature according to its kind, the cattle and creeping thing." Now these are the microorganisms, the things that creep upon the earth. "And Yahweh made the beast of the earth according to its kind, the cattle according to its kind, and everything that creeps on the earth according to its kind. And Yahweh saw that it was right. Then Yahweh said, I will make man in my image, according to my likeness, and they will have rulership," and that word means authority. You could put authority there, "over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth." So you see there, Yahweh gave us the authority over the creeping things, or the micro kingdoms. Now let's skip to verse 28. "Then Yahweh blessed man, and Yahweh said to him, Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, have rulership over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth." Now, these microorganisms, you aren't able to see them. Some of them help to build, and some of them help to break down. And you couldn't see them, but you knew that they were there. And then Yahweh prophesied, or the prophets prophesied, inspired by Yahweh, they prophesied that knowledge would increase. And it did in 1934. And with that increase of knowledge, microscopes were created and slow-speed cameras were created so that you could see the microorganisms. Now, with everything Yahweh created, Satan wants to destroy. And like the bees, they were spraying the bees with the mosquito spray, and it was killing the bees. Satan was destroying them with the mosquito spray. Now, I have an article on bees, some amazing facts about bees. This is from benefitsofhoney.com. Alright, and 20 amazing honeybee facts. The first one I have is, it's the only insect that produces food eaten by man. Honey is the only food that includes all the substances necessary to sustain life. Now remember, while I read these, Yahweh tells us to eat honey for a reason. All right, and these are the reasons Yahweh tells us to eat honey. All right, a honeybee visits 50 to 100 flowers during a collection trip. Now that's where they go out and collect pollen to make honey. A honeybee can fly for up to 6 miles and as fast as 15 miles per hour. A queen bee can live up to 5 years, and its role is to fill the hive with eggs. She lays up to 2,500 eggs per day. All right, to make 1 pound of honey, approximately 768 bees must fly over 55,000 miles and visit 2 million flowers. All right, also, I have another article on the 10 health benefits of honey. It soothes coughs. It improves your sleep. It says it calms nighttime coughs in children and improves their sleep. And the world tells you to take NyQuil. But if you go to Yahweh, He tells you to take honey. And honey is more beneficial than NyQuil. Praise Yahweh. It boosts your memory. It treats wounds. Here's an interesting fact. It says, in a study, 59 patients suffering from wounds and leg ulcers, 80% had failed to heal with conventional treatment, were treated with unprocessed honey, all right, or raw honey. All but one of the cases showed remarkable improvement following topical application of honey. Wounds that were sterile at the outset remained sterile until healed. All right, so they healed with the honey, not with your doctor's treatment. They healed with Yahweh's treatment, which is the honey. All right, honey also provides nutrients. It contains small amounts of a wide array of vitamins and minerals, including niacin, riboflavin, pantothenic acid, calcium, copper, iron, magnesium, manganese, phosphorus, potassium, and zinc. All right, it prevents low white blood cells. It relieves seasonal allergies. It kills antibiotic-resistant bacteria. And it resolves scalp and dandruff problems. Also, it helps fight cancer. All right, now this isn't my words. This is the article here. All right, you can see they can help fight cancer. All right, taking your honey. All right, and also taking your salt. And then another amazing fact is 1 out of every 3 bites you put in your mouth is pollinated by honeybees. All right, so the bees is something Yahweh created for benefit. And if you turn to Isaiah 7, found on page 534, Isaiah 7 verse 15, it says, "Butter and honey will he eat, so he may know to refuse evil and choose righteousness." All right, so the scientists are now proving that Yahweh is correct. You should take honey for health benefits. All right, now in conclusion, please turn to Psalms 81. Psalms 81, found on page 467, and we'll look at verse 16, Psalms 81:16. It says, "But you will be fed with the finest of wheat, and with the honey from the rock I will satisfy you." And I want to tell you that the wheat that we have, that makes our Sabbath breads, that makes the dinner rolls, that makes the tortilla, is Yahweh's wheat. All right, that was grown in our own garden. Praise Yahweh. And also the honey we have was from our own beehives. All right, so what a great blessing Yahweh has to offer to us. Praise Yahweh. So that's all the time I have. If y'all please stand, I'd like to turn it over to the next speaker, Deacon Michael Ossoff.
Shabbat Shalom, great saints of Yahweh. You may be seated. I hope everybody's having a great feast. Yahweh's blessing his house with many prophecies being fulfilled. For your notes, you can write down Jeremiah 23, 7 and 8. I'm going to go ahead and quote it. Therefore, behold, the days come, says Yahweh, that I will no longer say, as surely as Yahweh lives, who brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt, but they will say, as surely as Yahweh lives, who brought up and led the seed of the house of Yisrael out to the protected place, and from all the countries where they will be driven, and they will dwell in their land. Yahweh has revealed some great things for us in the Numbers, and Yahweh's been here long before the house was established, long before Pastor had come here. And so we started looking at some numbers of the area around here and saw prophecy all over the place. Not one number did I look up last night had anything negative or was not about Yahweh or Yisrayl Hawkins or the House of Yahweh. So we're going to start. Let's start with the area code. The area code 325 in the Strong's Greek is the word anadibami, which means to give forth, send up, and yield as producing fruit. It also means deliver and delivered. Now, an interesting note: the area code 325 was originally 915, and at that time when I first came to the House of Yahweh, there was lots of different area codes around here, and I had to be very careful. You couldn't call here because it was long distance. To call across 603, it was long distance, and we were kind of separated from the other area codes. Well, the word number for 915 means a severed piece. So the House of Yahweh here in Eula, Clyde area, was a separated piece from the rest. Well, Yahweh eliminated that, and now it's all one piece, so it would no longer be a financial burden to anyone in the area dealing in the work. Let's look at Callahan County. Callahan County, interesting note, if you take the L's out, and it's a Kahan, so I don't know if anybody knows that. It was established in 1877. In the Strong's Hebrew, the word is deshe, and it means grass, tender grass, new growth, springing up out of the earth, as food for donkeys caused to spring forth by Yahweh. As food for donkeys to cause to spring forth by Yahweh. Okay, let's look at the roads around here. The road coming in Oak Forest is private road 2543. 2543 in the Hebrew is kamor, and it means donkey or donkeys. Okay, so the road coming in 2543 means donkeys. Okay, at the turn where it goes down towards the west is private road 2548, the physical road to the 44 into the House of Yahweh. And it's the Strong's word kamitz, and it means seasoned with salt and clean. All right? So let's look at the physical address of the South Office, 3601. That word is kishar, and it means to be straight. But it also means success, suitable, to succeed, acceptable, and right. All right. Now, these are words that I just looked up. I didn't have to dig. You could go look in the Strongs at these word numbers, and it's all right there. It wasn't anything that had to be dug or looked up or really studied out, because it was all right there. The first Feast of Yahweh here on the 44 was in 1991. The Hebrew word for 1991 is haim, and it means wealth and abundance. Okay. The 44 acres. 44 is the Strong's word Ebenezer, and it means my Father is help, or Yahweh, our Father, is help. Okay. The post office boxes. 2498 for the House of Yahweh. The storage box, the post office box, is kalaf, and it means to pass on, to pass away, to pass through, or to pass over. To pass over. When we know the destruction comes on mankind, it's going to pass over us because we trust Yahweh, Yisrayl Hawkins, and the great priests and priests that teach in the House of Yahweh. Okay? Now, the interesting thing is the original post office box was 2442. And remember the story where Pastor, and I looked into Yisrayl Says, where Pastor talked about, they got the post office box and they would go and, he'd go there day after day and there was never anything. And he waited and longed for and looked for and there was never any. He prayed and he said, Yahweh, if there's just one letter in there, I would be so joyful. Well, Yahweh gave him 4. Interesting, the word number for 2442 means wait, to wait, waiting for, or longing for. Okay? So Yahweh is all over the place with these numbers. He established everything in the numbers. And there's much more that's going to be coming. Let me cover this one. County Road 603. The word means crying out, groaning, or sighing. Remember in Isaiah 40 verse 3, it talks about prepare the way of Yahweh, make straight, and I added to this a little bit, in the high plains desert in West Texas, a highway to our Father Yahweh. And we truly are groaning and crying out for Yahweh to come and deliver us and all mankind from the sins that's upon this earth and bring peace finally to this earth. Now the last and the greatest thing which got me started on this was the zip code. Now these codes are established by the United States government. So this shows that Yahweh was here, and it's another proof through the governments that Yahweh has established this as the protected place. There should be no doubt in anyone's mind. But in the Mark of the Beast, in 1978, Pastor said, bringing forth the man is to bring forth and teach who the real Savior is, which only the house of Yahweh does. It is to teach what Yahshua taught so that many who hear the word of Yahweh can repent from following Satan and turn to following Yahweh. Yahweh has promised protection in a place of safety for the house of Yahweh. The Hebrew word, let's see if I can zoom out. All right. Let's see if I can get this all in here. So what I did is I took the 0 off because the 0 is irrelevant. It's 7951. And it means to be quiet or at ease. And it comes, the Hebrew word phonetic spelling is shalah, and the overseer told me it connects to Shiloh. But it means to be at ease, to be quiet, to be tranquil, and then to be tranquil, secure, which means protected, successful, joyful, prosper, and be in safety. So the zip codes here for the house of Yahweh shows that we are in the protected place, to be in safety. So let there be no doubt in anyone's mind, Yahweh was here establishing a protected place for Pastor Yisrayl and the great priests and priestesses to lead the people to perfection, knowing that there would have to be a protected place for us. This is the protected place, brethren. You can count on it, you can trust in the one sent, and you can believe the prophecies. Now is the time to not waver, but to stand strong and to be straight and steadfast on the teachings of Yahweh's house. May Yahweh bless you greatly. There's more to come. If you'll all please stand. With honor, I have the great privilege to turn it over to a great priest, a great friend and a brother, the great Kohan Benjamin Hawkins.
Shabbat Shalom, great saints of Yahweh. Lift up your trumpets. Blow them hard. I'm getting ready to blow mine really hard here. Not mine, but our trumpet that we all work for in these last days, the 7th trumpet. If you'd all be seated. May the peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. So we're going from Nebraska to Alaska. And here's that protected place that the great Deacon Michael Ossoff just told us about. This is the cover of the current Prophetic Word magazine, September-October edition. Now, don't be confused here. You know, there's a separation right here, a separating line there. That nuclear bomb has nothing to do with the house of Yahweh's future. We have a bright, bright future, okay, of teaching Yahweh's laws throughout the world and the universe. that this is what Baal's kingdom has to look forward to. And here's the beautiful house of Yahweh down here. Psalm 91, the protected place. Somebody sent me this morning and saved me a lot of time going on Yisrayl Hawkins Says, because I can see they already did. But this was a message I received this morning I'd like to read to you, and it's from the 7th book of Israel, part 2, chapter 10, 10:7, right? Verse 82 of all verses. Remember, Pastor's 82. It says, "Now we just kept this Feast of Trumpets. I don't know how many understood what we were keeping here, but we were celebrating, brethren, the 7 works of Yahweh. The 7 trumpeters, the 7 works that Yahweh started from, he had planned when he created the earth. We celebrated his work. And the people who celebrate this and don't know what they're celebrating, I don't know what they're thinking in their minds. But it should be in your mind what we're celebrating, because the last trumpeter and the last lamp on the light are the same. And in that time of that 7th lamp is when Yahweh's work is finished. We're in it. We're in that time period right now. The 7 works of Yahweh. 7 works of Yahweh. To bring the universe out of sin, bring it out of sin. And that's our job, House of Yahweh. Are you excited? All right. Okay, so now today is the Feast of Trumpets, of course. And I want to show you in the Jewish calendar, the Hebrew calendar, it's now beginning today, October 2nd, the year 5777. And their year begins on what they call Rosh Hashanah. They don't wait till Day of Atonement. Remember, they don't follow the laws of Yahweh, okay? But this is their understanding. This is what they go by. And this is what I'd like to show you. The year 5777 starts today. It's called Rosh Hashanah, and it runs from October 2nd to October 4th. Now, if you remember, a lot's been brought on that 777 about the order out of chaos, the phoenix rising from the ashes. Speaking on their terms, speaking in Baal's world. Now, this is really interesting because the other night, I don't know how many of you have heard of this company here, Alphabet Inc. But Alphabet Inc. is the company that Google is now under since, ironically, October 2nd of last year. It's a conglomerate of companies that Google created and put their company, Google, underneath it. So it's got a lot of trading power on the NASDAQ. As you can see here, they're on the NASDAQ composite. And just to give you a little more information, Google's Eric Schmidt met with the Pope Francis at the Vatican earlier this year, and he said, quote, "I want to work with you to make these points." Of course, we don't know what those points were because they were behind closed doors. But he said, "We will make it happen." The Pope responded, "Pray for me. Don't forget." It's not known what the two were referring to, but it is known that they're working together to bring about something here. Friday night, this is what drew me to it. I saw this number on Google when I went to open up my screen. And this is the Alphabet Inc. stock as it closed on Friday. 777, and it actually was 0.50 because it shows you down here on the graph right there. After hours, it was 77750. Now remember, trading doesn't begin again till tomorrow. So the number is still at 777 today. Now, isn't that amazing? Well, let's look up this year 5777. And let me zoom out a little bit. It means lead from its dusty color. And it's from 6080. And it means to be gray or to pulverize, to be dust. Cast dust, to dust, powder. And it's from 6083, which means clay, earth, mud, ashes, dust, earth, ground, powder, rubbish, mortar, debris. Are you getting it? You see what's coming? Speaking of ashes, Ashton Carter. Ash Carter, Pentagon chief, says NATO is reviewing nuclear playbook to deter terrible attacks by Russia. Addressing the U.S. servicemen, missile units, and B-52 crews at Mino Base Defense. Remember, that's where the 6 bombs were loaded on back in 2007 when they were getting ready to nuke Iran. Y'all remember that? They were at this place here. We gave a speech here. It says Defense Secretary Ash, as in Rise from the Ashes Carter, stated that the U.S. and its allies had not built any new nuclear weapons or delivery systems in the last 25 years, and said that American nuclear forces must be ready to engage in a possible nuclear confrontation with Russia. You know, more saber rattling. But they're telling you what their plans are. They're ready to do this thing. And you're going to see this. This is from yesterday. U.S. and Russia offer fierce words, but not relief on Syria attacks. Now get this. This is in their words. And we're sounding this trumpet, okay? We're sounding this trumpet. The House of Yahweh is the only one that has this information. As yet another hospital is talking about the battle in Aleppo, Syria, taking place right now. It says, the strained relationship between Washington and Moscow deteriorated further Saturday with new threats over Syria, but no sign of relief to widespread bloodshed there. As yet another hospital in the besieged city of Aleppo was reported bombed by Russian or Syrian government warplanes, a senior Russian official warned of tectonic consequences. Quote, tectonic consequences if the United States attacked forces loyal to Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. And for you geologists out there, the word tectonic is referring to the forces or conditions within the earth that cause movements of the crust, as in an earthquake, tectonic plate activity, right? That's what it's talking about. Speaking of earthquakes, this from a couple days ago. Matter of fact, let me get my glasses. It was on September 30th, 2016 at 4:50 p.m. This article came out. It says, risk of big earthquake on San Andreas Fault rises after quake swarm at Salton Sea. Let me read the pertinent part here. They're talking about, they're expecting a very, very huge earthquake somewhere within, at this point, it said 2 to 7 days. 2 to 7 days. Now, I've never seen them prophesy anything that close. They might say, within 10 years or 20 years. But here they're saying within the next 2 or 7 days. Now, let me read you, though. This is really interesting. The definition of 450, because that's the time that article came out. And remember, tectonic, okay? Here's what it means. It means to raise up, rise from the dead. Now, you should be thinking about this great earthquake that's going to be taking place before this resurrection. You remember what was brought on that, right? Are y'all awake out there? Rise from among the dead, raised up again. Yeah, I might have to get Pastor out here to resurrect you, so we can get this place alive again, right? Okay, so this should be very exciting to you. You should be very excited about these news events. Now, check this out. Here's another hot spot. It says, no-fly zone would require war with Syria and Russia, top U.S. general says. This came out on September 23rd, and it was, the time on this article was, let me see here, just a second. I know I had this in order. Yeah, right here. It says 2034. That's military time, 2034. And lo and behold, it means something demolished, ruin. Something demolished, ruin. It's from 2040 to pull down or in pieces, to break, destroy, break down, beat down. destroy, overthrow, utterly. And then from 2034 in the Greek, meaning 7 times. 7 times. You remember in Deuteronomy 28, I believe, or one of those chapters where Yahweh says, if you don't, then listen to me, things will get 7 times worse, these curses, okay? And you remember the prophecy of Damascus? It's going to be an utter ruin. Y'all remember that, right? An utter ruin. Just like the prophet, just like those numbers show. Oh, here's another one. India and Pakistan back in the news. Pakistan, we have not made an atomic device to display in a showcase. Pakistan threatens to destroy India with a nuclear bomb as Kashmir crisis edges closer to the brink. We haven't heard much from them, but this was just 2 days ago that this came out. Do you see how close we are? Do you see how this could blow up at any moment? Are you looking forward to it? Here's another one from Catholic Online. ISIS prepares to trigger apocalypse in final battle against U.S. troops. It says, the spark has been lit here in Iraq, and its heat will continue to intensify. Remember, Iraq was where Babylon was, right? Let me read you this prophecy of the Prophet Muhammad that they're quoting here. It says, according to the extremist perversion of the Quran, Dabiq, the city that they're getting ready to pull into, the troops in Syria, will be the site of a major apocalyptic showdown with the armies of the infidel that will prompt the end of civilization. Apparently, Muhammad declared in the Quran, quote, the last hour will not come until the Romans arrive at Al-Armak or Dabiq, and an army consisting of the best people on earth in those days will hasten them from Medina. And Medina, that's where the troops will come from for the Muslims. That's their holy place, Medina. Okay, so let's see what else we have here. Oh, here's some interesting news from yesterday. Pope Francis left red-faced after Catholics in Georgia failed to show at Mass. Now, Now, you know, the stadium capacity is 25,000 and only 3,000 showed up. Y'all remember the muting of the beast that the great Kohan David told you about, 929? Now, what's interesting about this article, it says, this is from yesterday, and it was 1303 right there when this article came out, so I had to look that up, of course. And, well, before I show you, let me show you the empty seats. Here's the stadium. Here's the people. Here's all the empty seats. They've never seen this in the history of the outdoor masses. Okay? Man, you should be raising the roof. They're whining and complaining that only 3,000 people showed up. Wouldn't we love to have 3,000 here? Okay, so 1303. It means thorns and briars, right? Because that's exactly what this Catholic Church has produced. Nothing but thorns and briars, and they're near cursing, ready to be burned, as the book of Hebrews tells us. And it also means lightning. As I perceive Satan fall like lightning from heaven. Now notice this, 1303 in the Greek means appoint, to appoint, make of a covenant. Of something that belongs to one. Meaning to assign a thing to another as his possession. Remember, the scepter will not depart from Yada, remember? Until. I'll leave it at that. Pope Francis left red face. Well, that will fit right in with a red sin of the 7 hills, right? And by the way, here's some Orthodox priests in Georgia saying, you're not welcome in Orthodox Georgia, Pope Francis. Okay? That was at 1316. 13:16 was the time of this article, and it means to remove oneself wholly, depart, to separate thoroughly or wholly. Get away from us, you workers of iniquity. All right. And I don't have time right now to get into this. U.S. notifies troops of 10/10/2016 date to head overseas. 10/10. I don't have this time for this one either. High alert. This is not a drill. Russia on the move. October 10th. Surprise? Now, how would they know about that? Retired Green Beret warns we haven't been this close to nuclear war in a long time. All right. Now for some really exciting news. I got to get this in. Here's this month's calendar. We're going into a new month, the 10th month. All right. And there's a couple quotes on here. I need to read one of them. This one right here. This is from 5/31/09, Pastor Yisrayl Hawkins. I pray you'll be strong now and brace yourself and get ready for the battle, because there's going to be a showdown between Yahweh's house and Satan, and she's going to try to destroy the house, but Yahweh says he will not allow this to take place. And there's our beautiful overseer in gold. Now, when he made that statement, it was May 31st, 2009. I guess it was on one of the feast days because it was on a Sunday. And October 2nd to today, I ran the numbers, 22,681 days. And here's what it meant. It means a court or abode. It's from 2691, and it means surrounded by walls or a court, court enclosure, court settled abode, like a settlement or a court or a place that you're in. Here's 2690 in the Hebrew. Sounding, trumpeters. Sounding, trumpeters. To sound a trumpet, to surround with a stockade and thus separate from the open country. To blow a trumpet, to trumpet, to trumpet. It's from 2689. And 2689 means trumpet, trumpeter, trumpet, trumpeter. And it's from 2690, as you see here. And here's 2681. Notice this. 2681 means encamp, tabernacle, dwell, encamp. Turn over real quick to Psalm 34, verse 7. Psalm 34, verse 7. And I took you by surprise because I don't open this too often. But Psalm 34:7 on page 446 says, the Malach of Yahweh encamps around those who reverence and worship Yahweh, and they are delivered. Now turn over to Zechariah. Turn over to Zechariah. Chapter 9. Verse 7, I will take away the blood from his mouth and his abominations from between his teeth. Verse 8, then I will encamp around my house like a guard against those who march in and out. No more will an oppressor overrun them, for now my eyes are watching over them. Look at verse 12. Return to the stronghold, you prisoners of hope. This day I declare to you, I will repay to you double. He's talking about us, double honor, as the great Kohan told you last week. Verse 14, Yahweh will be seen over them. His arrow will go forth like lightning. Father Yahweh will blow the trumpet, sound the shofar, and he will march forth in the whirlwinds from the south. Now, Sunday, May 31st to Monday, October 10th. All right, here you go. This is to October 10th. 2,689 days. And this one means garb, clothing, dress, attire. It means a lowering or a letting down. And it's from 2687. It means to appease or restrain, pacify. And then notice here, 2689 in the Hebrew means trumpet, trumpet, trumpeters, trumpets. Now I want to remind you, 1010, it means trumpeter. Right here, as you can see, trumpeter. It's from the Hebrew chatzar. And it's from 2690, and it means to sound a trumpet. I want you to remember on 1010, it's actually the 10th day, or the 10th day of the 7th moon. Remember? 10:7. Who's that speaking of in Revelation? It's speaking of Yahweh's 7th trumpeter, the great Kohan Yisrayl Abel Hawkins. Are you all getting ready? Are you all ready for 10:10? I'm telling you, this thing could blow up at any second. And by the way, the great Deacon Michael mentioned all the numbers around here. Pastor called me at the last second. He said, "Could you look up Oak Forest for me?" Well, here's a little preview, because I don't have time to go through it all, but it says to set in order or arrange. Remember, the pastor sets it in order and arranges. Free from death, meaning immortality, glorification of the saints. It means to shake off the viper. These are just some of the meanings. It means the flock, feeding the herdsman, feed, pasture, graze. Speaking of feeding the flock of Yahweh, it means House of Yahweh in 1008. And also it means a tent, home, pillar, dwelling, tabernacle, tent. And from 166, it means bright, be clear, shine, shine, brightness. That's Oak Forest and Oak Forest Drive, okay? And as the great deacon said, there'll be a lot more, I'm sure. We'd like to encourage you to start looking into these numbers, I mean, it's magnificent what Yahweh's done here. I mean, I can't keep up with all this, But at this time, it's been a pleasure speaking on this great Feast of Trumpets. And I'd like, at this time, may the peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. I'd like to turn it over to the great Kohan Yisrayl Hawkins.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You may all be seated. Well, of course, in the world today, it's the mindset of the world of what we're seeing. And, of course, we're seeing this mindset is slowly changing from what it once was and the way it perceives certain things. And we'll get into that. But it starts off first, just to get your mind set, with a young man in South Carolina recently this week, 14-year-old boy. His mother was watching the news. She heard there was a school shooting at a local school. Well, her son was homeschooled. She wasn't too worried about it, just to find out that it was her son that killed her husband and then went to the school and shot it up. Well, what caused that 14-year-old young man to do what he's doing? Well, of course, it's the system and this world that's surrounding, that's influencing everyone in this world, from Chicago to the Middle East to Asia. All of these things are influencing people, and we see the decisions they're making. And of course, the ceasefire that we talked about last time we played the news between Russia and the United States in Syria, they said, well, we wonder if it will last, because it never ever lasts any other time. Well, of course it didn't last. It went all to pieces that night. But watch carefully, because they say the mindset, this is the mindset. Well, United States or Russia, they're still arguing about who did what. And remember, that's the first sign of irresponsibility, is when the first word out of your mouth is someone else's name, to blame someone else for what went wrong. And of course, there's no responsibility amongst the nations. But they're blaming each other. They're not taking these things. And they're also saying that, well, if you drop one more bomb, that's going to end the ceasefire. Well, when they dropped the 8 bombs before, didn't that kind of end the ceasefire? And of course, John Kerry, watch where he goes after he meets with Sergei Lavrov, who, by the way, is a very close friend of John Kerry. He is his counterpart in Russia. They're both close friends, and watch that friendship, because they've been close friends for a while. But John Kerry goes to meet with his counterpart at the Vatican to get instructions, of course, because later it comes out where John Kerry was recorded, and RT has released it, where Kerry has argued and is still arguing to use force in the Middle East. He wants to use force. Well, where else would he get that from, using force, but other than the place that rules by force, the one that sits on 7 hills? And then watch the mindset of the children. There's a 10-year-old little Yemenese girl. Watch what she says is always on the mind of people in the Middle East, the people of Yemen. It's always death, 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 death. That's always on their mind. And then, of course, Pakistan threatening India with nuclear war. Keep in mind, Pakistan has 130 nuclear warheads. India has 120. That's enough to totally annihilate. But keep in mind where they're at. Remember, Pakistan borders India to one side, but Afghanistan to the other. They're still in and around the great river Euphrates, and they're threatening nuclear war. There's a lot of hate in between these people, and there's only a few people making decisions for millions of people here. So keep that in mind. It doesn't take millions of people to detonate a bomb. It takes 1 or 2 people to get their emotions going without control, and it amounts to a 14-year-old boy killing his father and shooting it up. It's just on a much larger scale. And then, of course, Russia, United States and Russia saying this last resort. They're trying to get the de-escalation to come down. But watch what was shown. It was a special that was done on 60 Minutes, and this is really important. It used to be, during the Cold War, a nuclear bomb meant utter destruction, annihilation of the earth. But watch how the mindsets, and they're even slowly trying to get the people to go over where if we drop a nuclear bomb, it's like punching someone in the mouth. And then you stand there and hope they don't swing back. But they're trying to compare it to what took place with Japan when the United States bombed Japan with 2 nuclear weapons, and then everything stopped. America became great. Well, that's the mindset they're getting to, and these governments are preparing not for if we drop a nuclear bomb, but how are we economically going to survive after we do bomb them? What are our choices? So let's get our ducks in a row, and then we're going to bomb them. We're going to punch them square in the mouth because emotions are running, hatred is running, and they're looking to do it. And they're not looking to stop. And then we close with the king of Jordan. Remember the king of Jordan, King Abdullah. He has said for years now that the Middle East is in World War III. He's been sounding it. He's been saying it. His country has taken in millions of refugees from Palestine, also from Syria. Listen to what he says, though, and think about what Pastor brought. He says that what we're doing isn't enough, that we need to punch everyone in the mouth all at one time. Quit messing with this one and that one. Do them all at one time. Think of the death that's going to bring. And then at the very end, look what he has to say about Jordanians and himself. He literally says they've had enough of it. So if we could go ahead and play the news.
Pay close attention. The news you're about to see is fulfilling Bible prophecy.
Welcome to another edition of YPN News, bringing you the news that relates to Bible prophecy and foretold by Yisrayl Hawkins. Well, everywhere we turn in the Middle East, we see fighting and war, death and destruction, and today is no exception. As we take a hard look at the results of the ceasefire in Syria, as well as what one young girl has to say about all this fighting and killing going on in her country of Yemen. But first, the unthinkable, in a small town right here in the United States. A mother's worst nightmare becomes reality on September 28, 2016. Tiffany Osborne of Townsville, South Carolina, was working when she heard the news about a shooting at the town's elementary school. Well, knowing that her son was homeschooled, she thought he was safe. She later learned he was the shooter. Her 14-year-old son is now accused of killing his father, Jeffrey Osborne, and also wounding 2 students and a teacher at the school.
Students from Townville Elementary were entering the school playground for afternoon recess. The teenager began shooting. Teacher Megan Hollingsworth was hit in the shoulder as she pulled the children back into the school, and 2 6-year-olds were also shot, one in the foot and one in the leg.
Townsville Fire Chief Billy McAdams was first on the scene along with firefighter Jamie Brock, who found the teenage shooter with a handgun and was able to pin him to the ground. Now, McAdams expressed clear distress and grief over the event in a local news broadcast, saying, "Yesterday, our community experienced a very devastating and life-changing event. We're going to feel this for a real long time." Now, McAdams' son also attends the school.
That's right. While emergency services were rushing to the elementary school, another 911 call was coming in saying that a man had been shot dead. Tiffany's in-laws, had received a call from their 14-year-old grandson just before he began shooting. He was crying uncontrollably, and they couldn't make out anything he was saying. They rushed over to the home where he lived with his mother and father, only to find their son, 47-year-old Jeffrey Osborne, dead, and their grandson nowhere around.
The teacher and one boy who were shot were released from the hospital the same day. But most severely injured, however, was first grader Jacob Hall. He remained in critical condition but could no longer hold on. He passed away this past Saturday, October 1st.
That's it. Well, the 7-day ceasefire in Syria, which was brokered by the U.S. and Russia, has officially ended, and it's unclear if it will be prolonged. While the violence had lessened considerably during the 7 days, there were constant accusations from both sides that the ceasefire had been violated.
Even though further steps had been planned, it seems that all sides were not ready to move on to take those steps. Initially, it was expected that the Russians and the Americans would start coordinating their air campaigns against both ISIL and Fatah al-Sham, formerly named al-Nusra Front.
But neither the Russians nor the Americans are happy about how the truce went and are blaming each other for not meeting the terms for continued cooperation. The Russian Defense Ministry claims the truce was only observed by the Syrian government and that it gave rebels the opportunity to regroup.
Russia also blames the Americans for not influencing the so-called moderate opposition, failing to convince them to separate from groups like al-Nusra. In fact, they say that they've merged even further. And at the same time, the opposition are blaming the government for violating the ceasefire.
Despite stopping short from fulfilling its goals, the ceasefire did manage to bring some relief. John Kerry was in fact optimistic when he met with his Vatican counterpart in Rome to discuss Middle East issues, among other things. He told reporters that the basic ceasefire was continuing to hold and that aid trucks were moving to 8 or more locations, and he remained hopeful.
The recent U.S.-led airstrikes caused the Syrian army to lose some strategic positions against ISIS in the area. Americans weren't the only ones involved in the strikes. The Australians have come forward, as well as the UK, both confirming their involvement.
Well, looking back a bit there, Jeff, there was a lot of uncertainty as to whether the ceasefire would hold even through its 7th day after the 31-truck aid convoy was targeted just west of Aleppo, and on the 6th day of the ceasefire, in fact. The strike destroyed 18 of the 8 trucks and killed at least 20 people, causing the United Nations to just halt its operations in Syria completely. The convoy was due to deliver food and medical aid for 78,000 people living in eastern Aleppo, and it is estimated that there are 250,000 civilians facing severe shortages as a result of the siege on the city. So it doesn't seem like they're really making any headway here.
Right. Well, some are calling it a terrorist act. Deputy National Secretary Advisor Ben Rhodes issued this statement from the White House indicating Russia was to blame. First of all, he said, all of our information indicates clearly that this was an airstrike. That means that there only could have been 2 entities responsible, either the Syrian regime or the Russian government. In any event, we hold the Russian government responsible for airstrikes in this space.
Well, an audio recording of the U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry reveals his frustrations over not being able to end the crisis in Syria as he talked with a group of Syrian civilians behind closed doors. The 40-minute candid conversation took place during the week of the UN General's Assembly in New York and was leaked to the New York Times, who broke the story.
In the recording, Secretary Kerry was speaking with about 20 representatives from different Syrian opposition groups. While we don't have the original recordings, we do have the gist of what was said by the Secretary of State.
He said, "I think you're looking at four people in the administration who have all argued for use of force, and I lost the argument. I've argued for use of force. I stood up. I'm the guy who stood up and announced we're going to attack Assad because of the weapons, and then, things evolved into a different process."
Kerry continued, "A lot of us wish there was an enforcement mechanism right now a lot of us have been fighting for. But we don't have it right now in that sense. We're trying to pursue diplomacy, and I understand it's frustrating. You have nobody more frustrated than we are," he said.
Well, we know the lives lost in Syria have been enormous, but Tom Hartman of RT just announced a new report coming out which shows that with the U.S. invasion of Iraq, 1 million Iraqis were left dead.
Wow, 1 million.
That's right, which, in case you're wondering, is about 5% of that entire country's population. Wow. So it's a lot of people.
Well, we've talked about the plight of children throughout these war-torn countries, but one child has gripped social media with her heart-wrenching message in a way we have not seen. She comes to us from Yemen's capital, and at 10 years old, very eloquently expresses the fear and sorrow of her people from a child's point of view. Let's take a look at what she has to say.
26th of March 2015. Almost 12 a.m. It's the night before my concert, my second term's concert. I was really excited to attend the concert, but as I woke up and got dressed, Mommy told me that war against Yemen has started. And tons of people are dying. And all people lost their jobs. My dad lost his job also. My family, all the families are really maybe gonna die. I don't want to be the second. I don't want it to be my turn to die as a child. I want to live all my life. I want to be a doctor. I want to be an engineer. I want to grow up and be something important in this world and make the world more important.
Interesting. Well, in an interview with RT, the 10-year-old named Yara explains further what life is like for her and the Yemeni people. She said, "In these days, we stay at home. We're afraid that we go to a place and they bomb it. We're always scared. We never stop thinking of death." She said, "We think of death always." She also went on to say how people, particularly the children, have no freedom because they live in constant fear. She said it's like a nightmare.
Well, just last week, a Saudi-led coalition airstrike killed at least 20 more people in a port city of western Yemen there in her country. Well, according to a human rights watchdog, the airstrikes are deliberately targeting hospitals and schools, killing and injuring innocent children.
Horrible. Well, the president of the Philippines, Rodrigo Duterte, caused an uproar around the world with his recent comments where he compared himself to Hitler. That's right, and wanting to get rid of a group of people in his country. He said, quote, "Hitler massacred 3 million Jews. Now, there are 3 million drug addicts there, and I'd be happy to slaughter them." Yeah.
Duarte continued, "At least if Germany had Hitler, the Philippines," pointing to himself, "would have, my victims. I would like it to be all criminals, to finish the problem of my country and to save the next generation from the perdition."
Wow. Well, he eventually end up wiping out everybody because by their laws, or by the laws, seems like everybody eventually is some type of a criminal. Well, the defense minister of Pakistan raised the threat against India to a new extreme. Khawaja Mohammed Asif openly threatened India with a nuclear war. And in an interview with a Pakistani channel, the defense minister said special bombs will be used against India so that the coming generations will be affected. He also added that Pakistan can easily devastate India. Now, this may be one of the most blatant nuclear threats that Pakistan has ever issued against India.
Wow. The Pakistan minister also blames India for an old terror attack and reiterated his country's stance in reference to the Uri attack, that it was stage managed by India to portray Pakistan as evil. So the two countries, Katan, continue to go back and forth.
We see that a lot amongst countries. Well, things are also being shaken up overseas. Larry McGee has our report today on the latest around the River Euphrates. Larry, what do you have for us?
The danger of nuclear war erupting is increasing and is apparently growing more imminent by the day. While that might have once been considered to be a baseless, insignificant claim promoted by doomsday sayers, mainstream media is now endorsing the idea, complete with supporting interviews from global analysts and U.S. military officials. Reports are identifying a new Cold War between Russia and the U.S. and are seeking to explore the risk associated with nuclear proliferation between the two powers. Putting its enemies on notice, the U.S. recently allowed an unprecedented glimpse into its nuclear operations inside STRATCOM, as both it and Russia are said to be developing nuclear weapons that make the choice to employ them less difficult. One weapon in the U.S. arsenal designed to get attention and produce large-scale annihilation is the B-52 bomber. It can haul 20 cruise missiles, 6 under each wing, and 8 in its bomb bay, which is constructed to bring nuclear destruction in the same manner as the revolving chamber of a handgun, only with bigger bullets. Though the B-52 has recently been placed on display, military officials say the bomb is more than just a show because it can also deliver. Over the last 2 years, reports are that B-52s have been flying missions not seen since the Cold War to send exactly that message to Russia. The hostile flights are said to have been initiated following the crisis in Ukraine, which ultimately culminated in Russia annexing Crimea. Analysts say the fact that military force would be employed to change an internationally recognized border in the central part of Europe was new, and there was question as to whether or not there was ever any indication that the head of Russia was prepared to use nuclear weapons in the conflict. The response of analysts was President Putin actually said as much himself, citing the Russian leader's comments that he had given an order to the military to be prepared to increase the readiness of Russian nuclear forces in the event that the U.S. and NATO attempted to block Russian intentions with regard to Crimea. On another occasion, President Putin said Russia was not looking for a fight, but they were prepared for the worst-case scenario. This concerns analysts who believe that for Russia, the use of nuclear arms is not unthinkable. That notion is being supported by the Russian military doctrine released in 2014, which states that Russia shall reserve the right to use nuclear weapons in the event of aggression when the very existence of the state is in jeopardy. America then upped the ante itself, performing more aggressive exercises over the North Pole and North Sea. The exercises consisted of 4 bombers with the potential of carrying 80 cruise missiles. Hans Christensen, director of the Nuclear Information Project, is using Google Earth to demonstrate the message that sent to Russia with lines superimposed on the world map that show how the flights could have decimated multiple targets in Russia. American military officials say the exercises exhibited a lot of firepower that definitely sent a message, and Russia can draw whatever conclusions that it needs to. In assessing the matter, Rear Admiral Steve Perot says the concern is that in recent years there has been specific public statements made by Russian leaders that indicate an involved willingness to use nuclear weapons in the course of a conflict. He believes that Russia feels that the West is weak socially, and that if they were to use a nuclear weapon in the midst of a conflict, that might be able to shock the Western powers into de-escalating or calling a ceasefire. Overall, analysts say the present concerns are somewhat different from the previous Cold War, whereas the concern then was all-out nuclear war. Now the worry is that a nuclear weapon will be used somewhere in the world by a terrorist group possibly, or one of the many nations such as India and Pakistan, which now have nuclear stockpiles as well. Where U.S. Strategic Command is concerned, however, the biggest issue is Russian military doctrine, which they say is changing in a way that makes the use of a nuclear weapon more likely. For IPN News, I'm Larry McGee. Good time, Jeff. Back to you.
Well, it definitely seems like we're a lot closer to the Cold War heating up with the use of nuclear weapons.
Right. Well, in a recent interview with CBS's Scott Pelley, the King of Jordan, King Abdullah, spoke about the road on their fight with ISIS and the refugee crisis plaguing their country. Now, just a little background, Abdullah became king in 1999 after the death of his father, who ruled for 47 years. Abdullah, referring to ISIS by its Arabic acronym Daesh, says the West doesn't realize that it's in a new third world war. Now, the king said the challenge that's on most minds is it Iraq this year or Syria next year or Boko Haram? We have to look at it from a global perspective.
That's right. Well, he continued, as you see certain military successes in Syria and Iraq against Daesh, they're telling their fighters, speaking of Daesh, either don't come to Syria or Iraq, and they're moving their command structure to Libya. So are we going to wait another year or two and get our act together to concentrate on Libya? Or do we wait a year or two to start helping the Africans start to deal with Boko Haram? So we've got to get ahead of the curve, he said, because they're reacting much quicker than we are.
The American strategy in Iraq and Syria is to use air forces to train fighters on the ground, but that has not worked. When asked, how do you move forward, Abdullah said, the problem with the West is that they see a border between Iraq and Syria, but Daesh does not. And this has been a problem for our Western coalition partners because their lawyers get into the act and say there's an international border. And until they realize that the enemy doesn't play by the West rules, we're not going to win this.
So basically, Daesh doesn't care about borders. They go wherever they want to do and do what they want to do. Yeah. Jordan says it has flown more than 1,000 missions against ISIS in Syria in coordination with the U.S. Last year, pilot Muath Kusabe was captured, and ISIS put him in a cage and made a video of burning him alive. At that time, King Abdullah had 2 terrorists in jail. Within hours of that video being released, Jordan hanged those terrorists, and the king said that they need to, referring to Daesh, understand that there's no messing around with Jordan. Those who were involved with that pilot's capture and his death have been taken down.
King Abdullah said they're hunting down each and every person in the video, and if it takes another 50 years to get them, we will, because those are the rules of his neighborhood. Now keep in mind, Katan, there's the issue with the refugees fleeing from Syria as well in the midst of all this fighting, and Michael O'Hanlon from the Brookings Institute and Margaret Brennan, CBS Foreign Affairs correspondent, spoke to CBS News about Jordan's role fighting ISIS recently.
That's right. He said, O'Hanlon said, they're referring to Jordan, number 3 in the area for resettling refugees. So in regards to them handling the humanitarian part of it, they're extremely crucial. And of course, they share the border with Syria. That is Syria being north of Jordan. So for people driven from those areas because of the war, basically Jordan is their only hope.
Yeah. To give you an idea about Jordan, Abdullah's reign is over an area that's about the size of the state of Indiana, with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict to his west, north of him, Syria's civil war, to the east, ISIS in Iraq, and to the south, fundamentalist Islam in Saudi Arabia. It is a collision of tribes and religions, not confined by borders, drawn with a British T-square and crossed by American tanks.
That's right. Well, in 1990, King Hussein warned the president, then George H. Bush, to stay out of Iraq. And in 2003, the son of the king gave the son of the president then, who would have been George W. Bush, the same advice. Well, Abdullah's frustration in the matter comes as what he says: advisors and think tanks in the West think they know us, referring to the people in that region, better than we know ourselves. When this conflict started in Syria, everyone, referring to the West again, was saying, 6 months, basically we'll have it taken care of. And I was saying 6 years. We're in for the long haul, not only for Syria and Iraq, but for the whole region and the whole world.
When the king was asked if there had to be a Western army of some kind on the ground to help fight this, Abdullah said, enablers, because you can't have Western troops walking down the streets of Syrian neighborhoods, because at the end of the day, you need the Syrians to be able to do that. In 2014, CBS cameras were on the Syrian borders as the king's soldiers reached out and welcomed them, even though they already had 2 million Palestinian refugees who had been in Jordan for more than 2 decades. So they're already full, but they were still taking more on.
Yeah, and definitely affecting them. Jordan allowed 1.5 million Syrians into the country because they really didn't have much of a choice, according to the king. He continued, they were flooding across the borders and being shot by the Syrian regime, and Jordan has always been a place that's opened its arms to refugees from other countries, unfortunately. But then it got to a point where we're now at 20%, he said, increase in their population, and a huge burden on our country, and we're in dire straits.
Most of the refugees are in Jordanian towns looking for work and driving up rent. 160,000 Syrian children are in Jordanian schools. When the king was asked, what's the breaking point for you people, he said, about a year or two ago. Unemployment is skyrocketing, our health sector is saturated, our schools are going through really difficult times, and Jordanians are up to their heads, and we just can't take it anymore.
That's right. Well, with wars continuing to loom on the horizon, retaliation amongst the nations, and it seems like the entire world is reaching its breaking point, the question is, what can we do to turn this around? Well, Yisrayl Hawkins and the House of Yahweh has the answers, in fact, the peaceful solution to stop all wars. To find out more, you can contact the House of Yahweh.
When you contact the House of Yahweh, don't forget to request your free Prophetic Word magazine and monthly newsletter. To contact the House of Yahweh, you can write them at The House of Yahweh, P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas 79604. You can call them at 1-800-613-9494. Visit them on any of their websites, www.yahweh.com, www.yisraelhawkins.com, or www.yahwehsbranch.com. You can also visit our website at www.ypnnews.com. And for any email, you can email at info@yahweh.com. And any calls coming from outside the United States, please call the number on your screen. And once again, we'd like to draw your attention to the Yisrael Says program, the best study Bible tool out there on the market today. And you can find that by going to www.yisraelsays.com.
Well, don't go anywhere. Up next, Yisrayl Hawkins bringing forth the solution of peace. For all of us here at YPN News, I'm Katan Alexander.
And I'm Jeffrey Heimerman.
Thank you for watching.
At this time, if everyone will please stand, I would like to introduce the greatest teacher in the world, the great Kahan Yisrayl Abel Hawkins.
Shalom, everyone. We started the feast already. Praise Yahweh. We got all up on film, right? We got every bit of that cheers on film. Oh, you can go ahead and sit down. We'll get it later. You may be seated. We'll get it later. We'll get some cameras pointed this other direction here. You don't know what a beautiful sight this is until you see it on film. Praise Yahweh. May the peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. We pretty well got it covered, the news that I wanted brought today. We got it shown there on the films just now, but I did want to show you a couple of other things. They're running out of places to put the refugees. As you just saw. Now, we didn't see the Columbias, but that's really a big thing. I mean, right next door to us here, and thousands of people being displaced, and of course the wars are going on. These are not like the nuclear wars that are going on, but the wars is going on in that country, and they want to run everybody off. They want to in the Philippines too. I guess the Vatican has plans on getting another Hitler or two before it's over. Tensions rising sharply between nuclear superpowers. Now you saw that you could surely see that in the news release. This one names the countries that's in that fourth part of the earth that Yahweh says a third of man will be killed over that fourth part of the earth, the fourth part of the earth that houses the great river Euphrates. And of course they name Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, Sudan, Pakistan, Nigeria, South Sudan, Somalia, and the list goes on and on. But in 2013, the deaths there, and they say that this is way under what they are because they're having a hard time getting the numbers of the deaths. They don't even bag the bodies anymore. They just plow the ditches, push them in with a caterpillar and cover them up. And some of them they're not covering up. Diseases are being built and spread right now, and it's soon going to reach out to the world. But that's 124,372 deaths in 2013. Then in 2014, over that fourth part of the earth, what we got recorded that you can get is 158,439. 2014, 2015 keeps rising, 162,824. So you can see the deaths are coming up, and but this is missing a lot. A lot of the people that have been killed, and of course the displaced, and the children. You know, I don't see how anyone can look at these things and not start trying to negotiate a peaceful solution. It's hard to imagine the hatred that has been put into the hearts of these people, but it is being inspired because, of course, Satan wanted her crew, her boys, her gang, to be the leaders of the universe, and as I brought out before, and of course she wants to take mankind out. Well, Yahweh tried her boys, and they didn't. They proved what they could do with the earth in a very short time, and all of that, by the way, is coming back to me. I should have brought it years ago. It's going to be in the Yisrael Says program. Somebody told me the other day that they were looking for sukkah, and they Googled it, and they stronged it, and they brown and drivered it, and thayered it, and it just wasn't there. And they said, finally they looked in Yisrael Says program, and there it was. If you know of anything that's not in that Yisrael Says program, let us know. I don't think you can find anything that's not in there. Anyway, the wars, they've started. They're going exactly as prophecy said they would go. The work of Yahweh is going exactly as Yahweh said it would go. The article that came out on last Friday, common health concerns. Yisrayl Hawkins links common health concerns to biblical laws being broken. Now, at 7 o'clock this morning, when I was called and told this, the number of people that had read that was 93,052. 1 hour later, it was 95,174. So it's coming up about 2,000 an hour. Now that's the house of Yahweh. That's you. That Yahweh says is showing the difference in Yahweh's way and of course the ways of the world. That's in Zechariah, the 5th chapter. Speaking of the two houses of Yahweh. Two houses of Yahweh is taking this message to the world. One now, the western light, the other one went out, as prophecy showed it would. The week before that was Halloween, the article showing Halloween, and of course how it links to wars and fighting. That's up to 128,959. And the one before that, the subject of morality is not a priority teaching in today's world, and the results are evident, and that is up to 138,086. We've been at the top on Google for several days. I don't know how long we'll stay there. Some of the other faces have changed, but ours hasn't. It's still at the top, so we are reaching the people. We've got people, someone, I won't give the names or where they're coming from, but someone was looking to us for help, and we told them yes, and then for no reason at all, the credit card company canceled our credit card and tied up our mouths. And when I called them, and they said they didn't need a reason for doing so. I said, there's no reason for this. So they said, well, write a letter to the company, and they hung up on me. We wrote the letter, and they sent back a letter saying that we have the option of canceling any credit card, and we have taken that option in this case. End of letter. So anyway, we told these people that Satan was trying to stop it. So now get this, these are poor people in another country. They started selling their stuff. They sold enough stuff to get their tickets. They already had their visas. Praise Yahweh. It cost them $150,000 in their money of the stuff now that they sold. And I don't know how much money they got over that for what they sold, but they said they got enough money to buy the tickets. They're on the way. Praise Yahweh. Well, of course, the start of all of this stuff, this Rudolph, I wanted to call this to your remembrance because this was brought out last week and showed some great things behind this. But Rudolph at risk, it says 250,000 reindeer to be culled in Siberia. Officials plan to fight anthrax. Well, of course, they're using these for experimentation, they say, because they got a lot of anthrax going on. And these are that's just one of the things. And of course, China is fussing with the United States, Tokyo, over this South China Sea, and this could escalate at any time. Now, the next war, the book The Next War by Caspar Weinberger, I believe, brought this very thing out here. And then Malachi Martin did the same thing in the book The Keys of This Blood, knowing and releasing the information, I don't know how many caught it, that they were the 12 tribes holding the scepter and sitting on 7 hills of Rome. I quickly jumped on that afterwards and brought out the biblical facts on it, the facts from the book of Yahweh. World War III news, Ukraine caught in Russia NATO war, U.S. to strike Moscow over Syria. Now, these are the dangers that, of course, that can break loose any time. It could start now at any time and lead to the 1-hour burning. This all started, if you remember, with Cain. And Yahweh shows it to us because he, as the great apostle Shaul wrote, he said, it's written, it's shown in the writings of the prophets. But it started with Cain. And the whys of this, if you look over to 1 Yochanan 3, and see the influence here of the sons of the original sons of Hillel, that she takes up to see Yahweh every once in a while, or did, trying to change his mind and talk him into turning the world, the universe, over to them. And of course, he keeps refusing and saying, have you seen my people that's sitting in the protected place? Have you considered them? If you consider them, they're going to bring peace to the universe, not destruction. Now that's what he's telling her. That's what the House of Yahweh is telling the world, showing the difference in the way of Satan or the gods and the way of Yahweh, as Zechariah said. But in 1 Yochanan 3 and verse 12, he says, not as Cain, who was of that wicked one, that is Satan the devil, as shown in verse 8, he who practices sin belongs to Satan the devil. Well, Cain chose sin. Cain chose to, if you notice, kill his brother. And why did he kill his brother? Because his works were evil. Evil like Hillel's sons, who she quickly was pointing out to Eve what her sons were the gods, and Satan was pointing out to them what a joyous time her sons were having, what a desirous works they were doing, and they were following their own lust. And he tells you that the reason for these wars that we're seeing right now is because of this right here. The religious leaders that are leading these armies that are preparing to burn the earth, to dispense of. Did you notice how they seem to hate the people there, and showing how many, and they're willing to kill them all, to wipe out all of them? Well, of course, this is what took place back in the days of Hitler, and Hitler, of course, was wiping out the Sabbath keepers, the same that Titus did in Israel and Jerusalem. But they're willing to kill all of these people. Lives mean nothing to them. All they care about is their self. And this is the picture that Yahweh said you're going to see in this time period, along with the trumpet, or the trumpeters, or my messenger, the messengers, the house of Yahweh. You're going to see this working together, showing the difference. Do not marvel, my brothers, if the world hates you. Well, you've seen that hatred take place. In fact, they took a survey. Now, this was a legal survey and done by the courts here in America, and we were the most hated group on the face of the earth. I was the most hated man on the face of the earth. This is proven. It's in their records. Proven in court, in their courts. So, we're hated. Don't be surprised if the world hates you. I remember talking about that with my family when we decided to leave the churches that we tried for years to help, and they didn't want our help. But notice in this now, Cain killed Abel because he was following the gods, the evil of the gods, as is shown in Genesis 3:5. Do this, practice this, it's desirable, and you will be evil like the gods. And this is why Cain killed Abel. The Apostle Shaul shows the cause. If you turn over to the letter that he wrote to the Romans, to those in Rome, and he shows them where they went wrong. And of course he was speaking to the Yadim, and if you see that word Yadim and don't understand it, go back to Genesis 49:10 and you'll see it in the light that it is. He holds the scepter right now, and he's leader of the kings of the earth. All of his brothers, that is the 11 other tribes, praise him. They praise the Yadim. They're the ones bringing this forth. They hold the scepter, the rulership of the earth. That Yahweh allowed this. He allowed Hillel to do this. Yes, he's allowing it right now until a certain time. He allowed all of this. All of this is in his plan to make mankind in his image. All who will choose righteousness, he will make into his image, as he's doing you right now. He doesn't make you into his image giving you a rose garden to play around in. Yes, he planted a garden. That Eden means protected place. It was protected, but at the same time, he allowed deception for the purpose of seeing, will you stay or will you go? And of course, this is the same thing, if you remember, that he told Moshe. And Moshe said, fear not, Yahweh is here to test you. He's just going to prove you to see if you'll be obedient or not. So here's the law right here. Pick up so many sacks of bread each day, except for the seventh day. Don't go out there picking up this bread on the seventh day. Well, of course, they listened to part of it. They got the word, go pick up bread, but they didn't get the rest of it. And that's part of the proving. And of course, that's what he's doing with you. Go there and make friends with the brothers and sisters in the house of Yahweh, working companions. Working companions. That's what you're supposed to do. Where do I get that kind of stuff? Well, Deuteronomy says go to the priest and they'll tell you what work they want you to do. Go to the priest, they will tell you what work they want you to do to bring forth this work of Yahweh. Everybody has a part. One is a finger, one is a toe, one is a fingernail. That's one of the way the apostles put it. But whatever job you're given, that's what he says, in order to test you. That's what he said. Now, Cain chose the way of the gods, to be evil like the gods. He chose the way of murder, which we can see it in all these news pictures, the big warships. That all came from Cain. They've all gone the way of Cain. Yada 1, verse 11. They have all gone the way of Cain and Korah, who rebelled against Moshe. He put it all there together for you to see. They've gone in that manner. They rebel against the work of Yahweh, but they salute the Yadim. They praise the Yadim. He bears the ruling scepter today and will until Yahweh makes his enemies his footstool. Speaking of Yeshua, who's sitting at the right hand of Yahweh right now, we're going to sit at his left. Praise Yahweh. That's what he showed. For now, if you'll look at the first chapter of Romans, and notice verse 15. So as much as it is in me, I am ready to preach the message to you who are also at Rome. Of course, this message probably never did reach them because it was confiscated on the death of the apostle Shaul, put in a vault with what? With the rest of the book of Yahweh. Now that was Yahweh's doing. And why? So the house of Yahweh would have it in this time period. This last seventh trump, the blowing of the trumpet. You're celebrating your own memorial right now, you know. You know, this is the seventh work of Yahweh, and we're celebrating our own memorial of the blowing of the last seventh trumpet to the world. Everything you do in the house of Yahweh is part of this work that is reaching out, that makes it possible for us to be reaching out in so many different ways right now, reaching the entire world. And people reading this, understanding, and begging, help us get there. And the way is far, and the way is to get there is determination. Well, he says, for I am not ashamed of the message, which means that shame was being put on this message at that time, or he wouldn't have written that. Shame was being put on everyone who practiced the law, owned a menorah, would not eat pork, refused to eat pork. Don't be surprised if the world hates you because you don't eat pork, because you keep the seventh-day Sabbath instead of the God-day Sunday. I'm not ashamed of the message, and you need to take this as a commandment. Don't be ashamed of me, Yeshua said. If you're ashamed of me, I'm going to be ashamed of you to my Father. I won't introduce you to my Father if you're ashamed of me. Yeshua gave them the Sabbath according to commandment. He's high priest over the house of Yahweh, who gives you the Sabbath according to the commandment. Not according to the handed down lies that the Yadim, who holds the scepter, not according to their lies, but according to the written word of the prophets. Okay, he says, it is the strength of Yahweh unto life everlasting. This message, it's the strength of Yahweh to eternal life. For everyone who believes, to the Yadim first, and also to the Greeks. For in this message, this written message, is the righteousness of Yahweh revealed. And of course, 1 Yochanan 3:4 shows you what sin is and what practicing evil is, breaking the laws of Yahweh and who you belong to. Revealed. The righteousness of Yahweh is revealed from faith to faith, generation to generation, work to work, wherever the work is of Yahweh that brings forth this faith that was once and for all given to the saints. As it is written, notice that. Notice those words. As it is written. Verse 18, for the judgment of Yahweh is revealed also from heaven against all unholiness and unrighteousness of men who suppresses the truth. In lasciviousness they do this. In unrighteousness they do this. In evil, following the evil of the gods, they suppress the truth. In fact, they held it in captivity for 1,500 years, then butchered it up, changed it up, and sent it out. But even in their haste to do this, to get the money, knowing it was going to sell like hotcakes, of course, they let enough truth be known that could be studied and find the real thing. For that which is known about Yahweh is manifest in them, because Yahweh has shown it to them, that is his prophets. For since the creation of the world, the invisible things of him are clearly seen, his eternal power, his holiness, being understood by the things that are written, so that they are without excuse. Even the floods before mankind was put on earth are shown. The flood after the creation of mankind is shown. All of this is shown by the prophet. So you know what led up to this and why you were created and so forth. Because that when they knew Yahweh, they did not glorify him as their father, nor were thankful, but became idolatrous. Well, we see this sometimes in people who get hung up on the rose garden being full of stickers, full of thorns, and they get hung up on that, and they forget about the blessing that Yahweh, they are one in trillions, that Yahweh has actually chosen to be sitting here in his house, learning how to become a servant in his kingdom. Praise Yahweh. In their reasoning, and their God worshippers, in their reasoning, idolatrous, and their senseless minds were darkened. This is the same way that took place with Yahweh's sons. I think I'll keep going here. I want to keep bringing other things, but look at verse 22. Professing themselves to be wise, which they do even today. They profess themselves to be wise. They became fools. In verse 23, exchanged the glory of the uncorruptible Father. Now this tells you you're not going to corrupt the Father. The Father is going to keep this, and we're being made in His image. So don't yield to it in any way. Don't yield to sin. Don't yield to leaving Yahweh's work that He assigns you to. Father, uncorruptible Father, for images in your own minds now. These images are conjured up in your own minds and given to you by inspiration of Hillel's sons who still have much power. Images made to resemble corruptible men and birds and four-footed beasts and creeping things. Therefore Yahweh also gave them up to uncleanness through their own lust of their own minds, to dishonor their own bodies. Now he's speaking about fornication, adultery, sodomy, and bestiality here. Who exchanged the truth of Yahweh. The truth of Yahweh, Yahweh showed you how to keep from defiling yourself. That's what you've got to go for. If you let your mind become defiled, first it'll cause your body to sin. That's what Yeshua showed you. Don't be even thinking about these things. Put them out of your mind and say, "Get behind me, Satan." Who exchanged the truth of Yahweh for lies. Man, at the lies, I don't think they have any truth left. Everything they teach is lies. Starting with Halloween, and one of the preachers is trying to fight back in Abelin, and when we're first started bringing out the truth on Halloween, and he comes out on the television and says, well, regardless of where Halloween came from, it's still a fun night for your children. It won't be so funny. It won't be so funny when the end result comes, which is hell fire. And no, Yahweh don't strike the match that starts it. This letter came, well, isn't Yahweh going to burn up all the people? And I said, no, Yahweh don't do that. Yahweh don't even kill. Oh boy, if you could just understand the mind of Yahweh. I was trying to explain it yesterday to a group. If you open a newspaper, a big wide newspaper, you just open it like this, close it like this, looking out of somebody over it, but it's within your eyesight here, somewhere or another. Close it. Under hypnotism, the subconscious mind can be exposed, and you could read word for word everything on both of those pages. Every word, every period, every comma. You'd know if a T was not crossed or I not dotted. I mean, that's the power that Yahweh had. Now, He can calculate, Yahweh can, and He will know when a bird is going to fall on the ground, a sparrow. That's the least. The sparrow is supposed to be the least of the birds. They sold 3 for 1 farthing, which a farthing was about a penny, I think, or something like that. And you could buy 3 sparrows in the temple for a sacrifice. And of course, that was a sacrifice that they cooked for you and you eat. And that was your dinner, the sparrows. Very tasty birds, but they're cheap. And but he knows. Now, he could calculate this. Now, he also knows when he's going to test you with something. He knows you're going to be in his house. He knew that and he knew your attitude before he brought you to his house. He knew what you knew in your mind before he brought you to his house. He could see this in the genes. That's what's shown in the scripture. From Abraham, he could see the crosses down through the centuries, how your bloodline was going to be, what color your hair was, how many hairs was on your head. Yes, all of that is shown in Yahweh's mind, and he knows exactly when you're going to be born, what your name is going to be, and so forth. Now, and he writes about this in certain cases. Now, that's the mind he wants to give you. Yes. Once you get this mind, you can think, before you say a word, you can think 10 years in advance or 100 years in advance, what is that word going to produce from my mouth to the next person's ear, to the next person's mouth, to the next person's mouth, and so forth. He is that brilliant. There's no way that you could over-exaggerate the mind of Yahweh. And he wants to give it to us. He wants to make us in his image. Now, what if Hillel's sons had this? They proved what they would do with the tiny brain that they had. Yes, he did test them. And they left their first estate. They left it. Here's the creator of the universe, their father. And they left their first estate. And one of the apostles wrote, if Yahweh will not take them in after they left their first estate and give them this prize, he certainly is not going to give it to you. That's the way they put it. Well, I can tell you right now, Yahweh would get down on his hands and knees and he'd kiss the bottom of your feet to get you to be righteous if he had to. Yes, he loves you that much. And he wants every one of you to receive this subconscious mind that I'm telling you about. You can read about this. You can Google it. You can look it up in Yisrael Says program. It's there, along with Sukkah, along with the Sabbath years, along with the Jubilee years. Isn't it, Yahweh? Praise Yahweh. Well, back to Romans here now, who exchanged this truth, this magnificent wisdom of Yahweh. They threw it all away for their damnable lust so they could go out and commit sodomy, get their women to doing the same thing. This is what you see in the next few verses there. They threw it all away for this, and that's what he's telling you here. He's saying the people in Rome, they left Yahweh, and this is where they went wrong. They threw all of this away. They couldn't even stay in the land that was given them. They left their estate, moved on to Rome, hibernated where they could fulfill their lust here and also rule the world for a short time. Now, they know the prophecies. That's the reason they hid them from the people. They didn't want this to ever be revealed, and they knew it was going to be from the prophecy, because they did have people studying this, and they tried to change it, they tried to hide it, they tried everything to keep this work here from developing, but they failed. Look at the last verse. He says, well, let's look at that. Go back to verse 28. So since they did not like to retain Yahweh in their knowledge, Yahweh gave them up. Said, okay, that's fine. Go your own way. Go your own way. Being fulfilled, 29, being fulfilled with all unrighteousness, sexual impurity, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, strife. That's the things we're seeing in the news right now. All of these things we're seeing in the news. Brought forth by, if you look back to verse 26 and 27 and read it, he shows you the cause. This is the way it started. He shows you this. And it brings your understanding to nothing. You don't even know what you threw away. And without understanding, verse 31, they are covenant breakers. This is the reason that no one trusts them. You know, Russia is accusing the United States of breaking their word. The United States is accusing Russia. And of course, pretty soon the first lick is going to take place. That's the way the fights start. But it starts with lust, fulfilling the lust. In one way or another, it's fulfilling your lust. An undesirable thing, following the gods, to take advantage or to get advantage or power. Who knowing the righteous judgment of Yahweh, that those who practice such things deserve death, they deserve death. And that's what they chose too. Not only continue to do these things, do these very things, but also approve of those who practice them. Now, remember that right there, and turn over, just hold your place right there. Look at verse 17 again, verse 17, and notice those words again. As it is written, as is written. Now, if you remember Isaiah 34:16, don't turn there. Let's go to, Second Kephah. But Isaiah 34:16 says that not one of these things will fail. Yahweh is their shepherd, and Yahweh's way is coming forward. You wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't. Yahweh said, in the last days, I will establish my house. That house is you, brothers and sisters. Yes, that house is you. Be turning over to Second Kephah. But he's guarding it. He's making sure that nothing disturbs his plan. He's allowing Satan's sons to inspire the demons, and he says they won't repent. You know, they like what they chose. The only thing he says you're creating a hell fire. Yes, it's mankind that's creating this hell fire, not Yahweh. Yahweh's warning them and trying to say, don't do this, you're going to be burned. And he says, I'm going to protect my people. I'm going to protect people who turn to me. But Yahweh's not going to protect Satan's people. They have chose Satan, so Satan's way will be laid out in 1 hour burning. Yahweh's not doing it. He's saying, don't do it. Don't go this way. You're going to fall off of the cliff if you keep going. I hope that's clear. In 2 Kephah 3, remember the words, as it is written, and look at verse 6. 2 Kephah 3, verse 6. By Yahweh's plan. By Yahweh's plan. I've got a lot on that in the Yisrael Says program. By Yahweh's plan also, the world then existing was flooded with water and destroyed. The way they wrote the King James Version, we fell for that trap too for a while. But the way they wrote the King James Version, Yahweh flooded the earth. Yahweh did this. No, Yahweh didn't do this. He kept warning them for about 130 years by the one sent, who was Noah, preaching to them, righteous Noah, preaching to them. And of course, he was hated and ridiculed like we are today. Every light, every trumpet, every trumpeter was hated by Satan's people. By the same plan, he says in verse 7, by the same plan, notice this flood came. It was part of Yahweh's plan. He knew it was going to be. He warned them, don't do it. The earth is going to vomit you out if you do this. How much plainer could he get? He tells them, he lays down the law and says, don't break this law or this is going to come upon you. And that's the way we're doing today. We're showing the world the difference in Yahweh's way and the difference in Satan's way. In Yahweh's way, there won't be war. They will learn war no more. Well, Satan is teaching them war. The religions are saying, well, this is a just war. The Christians are saying it, and the Muslims are saying it, and all the religions, 4,200 religions are all saying, well, this is a just war. This person did this, so I'm going to take revenge. You're going to pay for it. You shot this missile my way, I'm going to shoot one your way. Well, this last one is going to be so many exchanges that it's going to burn the earth in 1 hour, and Yahweh will protect only His people. And that's what He tells you. This is the Garden of Eden right here now, in the last days. Eden means the protected place. Nothing can destroy this. Yeshua said the gates of hell, the gates of hell is hellfire that Satan is creating to destroy mankind. Yes, we are the protected place. Yahweh is encamped about us. Let's see, verse 7. By the same plan now, the heavens and the earth, which now exist, are reserved for fire. See that? For fire. That's what the Revelations 18 shows us. A 1 hour burning that's getting ready to take place. And all the governments know this. That they know it, and they're in hopes of getting of destroying the enemy before they get hit. First strike. First strike. For fire being kept in store until the day of judgment, for destruction. Remember, Yahweh Himself is the one holding this back. He's not allowing it for a certain time period until He gets His people trained. Of unrighteous men, for the destruction of, you see that word, unrighteous people? Unrighteous people, for the destruction of the unrighteous people. Yes, He's going to allow it. He tells you don't do it, but He's going to allow it. Look at verse 10. He says, but the day of Yahweh will come as a thief. Well, that's what Yeshua said. It's going to be just like it was in the days of Noah, He said. They'll be eating and drinking and marrying while given in marriage, that is, committing fornication and adultery, until the flood came and wiped them all away, or till the fire comes and wipes them all away. He protected Noah. He is going to protect His house in these last days. That's what He says. He's going to encamp about it, around it, and nothing is going to take it. But only the wicked, the unrighteous men. Verse 10 now. But the day of Yahweh will come as a thief in the night, in which the heavens will pass away with a great noise, and the elements will melt with fervent heat. Now these are talking about the heavens and the earth, if you can imagine the heat that's going to be brought by these nuclear bombs. They say, by the way, that even if a third of of the bombs that exist were used, this would take place. This would be enough. Both the earth and the works that are in it will be burned up. You see that? The works are going to be burned up, and the unrighteous people will be ashes under your feet, as Malachi said. Since all these things will then be dissolved, what manner of person ought you to be in all holy conduct and righteousness? Notice he uses the word righteousness again there. All righteousness. You must look for and earnestly long for the day of Yahweh, because of which the heavens will be dissolved in fire. The heavens. This is the heavens that involve the earth. Dissolved in fire, the elements will melt with fervent heat. Satan is planning, and Yahweh knows it. She's planned this to try to destroy mankind. And Yeshua said, only if Satan can destroy heaven and earth, then unless she can destroy heaven and earth, he says, the laws of Yahweh, which we're bringing forth, are going to prevail and stop all wars forever. Now that's Yeshua's words, speaking now this same burning here. Nevertheless, we who are practicing righteousness, according to his promise, look for the new heaven and the new earth, in which the righteousness only dwells. 17. Go to 17. You therefore, beloved, since you know these things beforehand. This is the prophecies, as sure as the prophecy that knowledge would be increased, the bomb that could darken the sun, could burn the earth, would be invented in this generation that started in 1934, along with the last witness in 1934. So since you know these things beforehand, how? By these prophecies. By what is written. That's how you know these things beforehand. Isaiah 34:16. The book of Yahweh, search it out. Not one of these is going to fail. Beware that none of you fall from your own steadfastness. How do you do that? Well, you get led back out into the world. Being led away with the error of the wicked. And Yahweh has told you what this error of the wicked is from start to finish, and showed you by example too. But grow. Yeshua, you know, if Yeshua's disciples, you know, they started to one time. Yeshua was gone for a short time. Now, he did this to prove a point. And this will never take place in the new world again. Not ever. He shows that when the righteous one sent is taken away, then it starts to collapse. And this has been shown over and over. 6 times it's been shown. But this 7th time, it's not going to be taken away. You therefore, beloved, since you know beforehand, beware that none of you fall from your own steadfastness, being led away with the error of the wicked, but grow in truth and in the knowledge of Yahweh and of our Savior, Yeshua Messiah. Well, of course, he's our high priest now over the house of Yahweh. This high priest of ours is leading the house of Yahweh, as I've shown over and over. If you don't have that information, go get the Yisrael Says program. We really need, if we could get that to everybody in the world, you know, they would be without excuse for deception. Well, that preacher told me this. You know, they could, if they had the Yisrael Says program, we're going to put words on there. Ask me a question. Ask me a question. It's going to come up on the screen. Because it answers every scriptural question. Well, brethren, you're going to have a great position in the house of Yahweh, the kingdom of Yahweh. That's what you are right now. And you're training, you're testing, Yahweh's testing you in order to strengthen you, not to turn you away, but to strengthen you. We may have our worst test yet between now and atonement, you know. Be ready for anything, but don't be ready to leave. Hold tight, hang in there. as the great Kohana said yesterday, hold tight, just keep it up, keep it up. Hang on like that, the bulldog. The bulldog hangs on. I think I compared that in the early years to a bulldog. You get a hold and bring the biggest bull down. I saw that when I was a child. We had a small dog that we used on cattle, and he's trained. And this bull, he was a mean bull, neighbor's bull that broke in, and that little dog, I could pick him up easily, but he went in and got that bull under the chin like this, and the bull throwed his head up. He must have thrown that dog 30 feet in the air, and the dog came down, and he shook himself and looked around like he's dazed, and then he saw that bull coming, and he ran again and got him under the chin again. And that bull, this went on for quite some time. The bull would actually lock his front feet on that dog and raise his head up like that, trying to pull him loose from his chin. But he couldn't do it. And after a while, the bull started breathing heavily, and we were able to take the dog loose. We knew how to take the dog loose, but the bull gave up. And we took the dog loose. I walked ahead of the bull. My brother Vernon walked behind, led him right into the lot. We went and got the neighbor in his trailer and loaded him up without any trouble. Well, you're the bulldogs. We've been thrown every which way, but we're still hanging on. And Yahweh shows we're going to bring this gates of hell down, and they will never be restored. Yahweh bless you, and I'll turn the services over to the next leader. I love you.